Been a minute. We're back.
But it's been a ton of stuff. We have a new chair of the Fed, nominated for the Fed. That's positive because this was a surprising pick.
Yeah.
Not a polarizing pick, which is what everybody expected, right?
Not a polarizing pick, and a pick that historically has been a little more hawkish.
Yes.
Too.
Kevin Warsh, his biggest statements in the past have been, I don't like the size of the Fed's balance sheet, which is a very defensible take, to not like the amount of debt that the government carries.
Sure. It's huge, too.
But there's nothing wrong with that in isolation. I think it's a safe decision. I think it's a conservative decision. But it's a mindset that's at odds with getting to lower interest rates.
Right. That's why it's such a surprising pick.
Yes.
So, and with Trump is adamant, as he's been with pushing rates lower and his frustrations with Powell for not moving rates lower, this would be the number 1,000 person that I would think would be on his list for the nomination, because his whole history has been more restrictive. So there's some kind of change of tune, surely, to say he's going to be accommodative now or something along those lines. We don't know.
And I believe that his name was floated pretty early on for this. And I believe that he's been making noise that he is more accommodative. Things like, we see these sorts of things all the time, right? But he's a trusted name, a vetted name.
Yep.
Nothing wrong with that.
Experienced guy. He was in the financial crisis, as a governor. So, he's been through that and seen that whole situation and how it unfolded and how he dealt with it. So he's definitely got the resume for it.
And in theory,
still, it's just a surprising pick because he's just been hawkish. And, with everything that Trump said, he wants not just Dove, but like a super ultra accommodative. And
like the one governor he actually did put in place, saying, no, with this need to be 50 basis points. My dot plot is like a colored line across the bottom. Yeah, I'm really heartened by the pick. It makes me feel a lot better about the stability. We saw the market jump up the moment that we saw the announcement.
If anything, it shows that the independence of the Fed is going to stay intact. And the Fed, I don't care what anybody says, that should not be a political operation. It's just too powerful.
I think it also shows to some institutional trust by President Trump in Scott Bessent. Scott Bessent, I think, probably holds some of the most persuasive weight in the White House right now, which, there's things I agree and disagree with Bessent on, but in general, he's probably one of the cabinet members that I trust the most in terms of financial stability and decision-making quality. So, yeah, pretty good outcome for everybody involved. Yep. Unexpected because of that.
Definitely
but
unexpected.
What is also unexpected is these jobs numbers.
Yeah, let's dive into that. So the jobs outlook and employment outlook in the United States right now is pretty bad. I mean, we're going back to the Great Recession, numbers coming out of that.
2009. Last time we saw 104,000 layoffs planned for a month, which is the Challenger report. That tracks specifically layoffs. That's grody.
That is not a good number. And inflation is still definitely higher than where the Fed wants to see it. So the Fed is really in a tough spot here because they have inflation it's persistent. It just is persistent. And at the same time, it means really weak jobs data. And there's just no positive way to spin that. But give us a little more of the details of the jobs data that you saw.
Yeah. So 104 layoffs on Challenger, mainly concentrated in tech. And we're going to do a little callback here, right? What did I say 7 months ago? That AI, this was the year that we would start seeing the job impacts.
Here it is. Amazon, massive layoffs. And I mean, they're not trying to hide it all. They're just saying, hey, the AI systems are taking over the jobs. Yeah. And they're planning, they've also kind of pre-announced that they're planning a lot more layoffs too. There's a lot more coming.
The second piece of this three legs is ADP. 22,000 jobs added, which means openings filled, right? Net filled. So yes, 104,000 people were laid off, which is a historically high number. We still gained 22,000 jobs according to ADP, but of course these places, these independent agencies, they don't talk to one another, so they've all got a little bit different opinions on what the picture looks like. The 22,000 is extraordinarily low, to be clear, because what you're competing against is population growth, people entering the workforce. Nick, you had said you'd seen some stats that workforce participation rate. In other words, the number of people in the United States who are holding a job, participating in the workforce, they want a job and they're seeking a job, is getting higher and higher and higher. There's a couple reasons that could be, but that's why we can have a highest since 2009 layoff number, but still a net positive job number, even if it's tiny. And to be clear, adding 22,000 jobs, given the rate of population expansion in the United States, is not a win.
It's very low.
It's very low. And here's the next problem with it. These jobs primarily were in education and healthcare. Now, this is not taking anything away from people that work in education or healthcare, but structurally, those things don't add to gross domestic product and American productivity in the way that manufacturing or tech does. Those are about improving, stabilizing, making our workforce better. They don't, in isolation, make our country more competitive.
Yeah, or growth,
right?
Really, in that matter, when we were talking about growth. So just overall, very weak jobs market. Yep. So now we got the BLS report, which I think is coming out Wednesday. Yes. It was supposed to be Friday. It was delayed because of the government shutdown. So we'll see what those numbers come in at. The revisions have been so high on these that we'll really see what the revisions are from the previous report. It's almost like that's a more important number, not the headline. But it could be very anemic. And what's that going to do to rates? It's going to pull rates down if it is. I think we're kind of expecting that. But the market wants to see, right, before any decisions made on what direction rates are going to go. But the one thing that we do have to mention, super important when we're talking about mortgages and real estate, is the spread between the MBS and the 10-year Treasury. So that's the difference of the mortgage rates versus the Treasury rates. It's narrower than it has been in years. And if we were to take the spread last year compared to this year, we'd have rates at 7.5%.
Or the spread the year before.
The
23 spread was incredibly gnarly. I think it got up to nearly 3 percentile points, something like that, nearly 300 basis points. Yeah. I think at its highest. This is when we saw conventional rates at nearly 8%, which is disgusting. That fortunately was pretty short-lived.
So now we're in the low sixes, in that range with grade A credit. Some days we've seen it pop down in the upper fives, especially we could pay a point buy down. So the rates are much better than they were this time last year. The spreads have really narrowed. And that, we think, at least is in part due to the buying that is happening by Fannie Mae. Not only the Trump announcement to buy additional MBS,
but there's been background buying going on apparently this whole time. A mortgage scoop that disclosed, hey, this has actually already been happening. And Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are not, they have billions by billions of dollars, right? But compared to the power of the federal government, they're limited in the runway of what they can do. Yeah. So this is a little concerning. From
$200 billion sounds like a lot of money, but in the scheme of things, it's really not.
In the amount of mortgages that we produce on a weekly basis, it's just not. Now, I do think that the inflation story is going to be improving. Because as we get to as these year-over-year numbers start trailing out, we are seeing definite slowdowns in home price appreciation. And in fact, and that's
43% of the inflation number is housing. We're seeing rents, rent amounts coming down, home prices stabilizing, it's coming down in certain markets. So that's definitely gotten better.
In the Knoxville market specifically, we are now, in terms of real dollars, actually in home price decline. We're looking at year-over-year numbers of 1 to 2% appreciation in home price, right? But we're getting 3% 3 to 4% wage growth, which, from an effective standpoint, is a price decline, which is good. that's a positive. We need to close this delta so bad between what the average person in the Knoxville market makes and what a home costs. This is a positive for us.
Yeah.
And I think that's borne out here. Nick, you've said we've been off the charts here lately as far as our applications, lots of activity, which is good.
Yeah.
And I'm really heartened by the strength of our local real estate market, even if the prices are not doing much. Still a very strong transacting market.
It's definitely switched into more of a buyer's market. I think we are actually considered, based on inventory, we're actually considered to be in a buyer's market right now. So now, when was the last time we were in a buyer's market? 2013, I think, something like that, years and years ago. So that's a real positive if you're looking to get it. I think this is going to be a good year to be a buyer. So on the seller side, not the best
still
year.
Okay,
still good.
It's still really good because you're getting way outsized return. You're now
still selling
harvesting
at a very high level from where prices were a few years.
You're still harvesting the full benefit of the price appreciation.
Yeah.
No one's really talking about price declines in the Knoxville market, but we are talking about slower growth over wage declines, and perhaps over other asset classes. Now real estate is just not the most attractive asset class that you can own
as far as price
appreciation. So in terms of leverage you could use, that it's still extremely attractive. If you're putting 3.5% down on a house and your house appreciates by 2%, well, you just made
your cash on cash
nearly 50% return on cash on cash investment. So from the perspective of the leverage that's accessible to you as a home buyer, it's still an incredible deal.
Incredible.
As far as a real estate investor who's going to have to put 20 or 25% down, it's a different story, and that's good. If we don't have the investors in this market, for the person that's trying to go out there and buy a house, that's a positive story. It hurts my heart to say that because I'm a real big fan of real estate investment, but I'm really happy from a moral standpoint and just how my heart feels that we're in a much better spot for the average person to go out and buy a house in Knoxville than we have been the past couple of years.
So definitely an improvement there. So obviously it's been a while since we had this podcast, but I don't think we even got a chance to mention the potential caps on investor purchasing single-family homes. So that was just an idea that was floated out there.
I think it got to an executive order, but I don't know if there's an implementation of it yet.
I don't think there is yet, but it's an interesting idea to say, hey, these big institutional investors, I don't think big was defined either. And what qualifies, how big is big, right? Is it a hedge fund, or is it just, an individual that owns 10 houses? Are they considered big? So I think we're probably just talking about the largest of large, not being able to buy single family homes. That could be a very interesting development in certain cities where there's high concentration.
Atlanta's one where institutional ownership is off the charts.
Charlotte has a really high institutional ownership. Knoxville's less than 10% though, I believe. So Knoxville's not real high.
The horse has kind of already left the barn on this though, unfortunately. Most of your large institutional actors acted during COVID rates. They scooped up homes that were still appreciating at 4, 5, 6% a year at 3% rates. It's the biggest no-brainer in the history of real estate, right? I can use leverage. I can be highly levered at, acting with the force of a 3 or 4 times multiplier on my money to purchase an asset that's appreciating 4 to 5% every year. So that's 20 to 25% secured with a secured investment, right? Because a stock's not secured. With a house, you actually have something. You have a physical good.
Zero, right? House is never going to go to zero.
Exactly. So for something that in cash on cash return is returning 20, 25% a year, it's nuts. But now institutional buyers have already backed off the market. They're seeing nowhere near the amount of institutional buyers because it's not an institutional grade investment at this time for a lot of the spaces. There's some exceptions to that. It's going to be city by city with a large scale buyer. Now, if this policy holds, then, if if this is a policy that we maintain as the United States, not just for a presidential term or not just for the control of a party, but if we maintain that policy
long term,
for
it can have
10,
some
20,
very
30 years,
positive.
the next time we have this wave where we need to cut rates or something like that, the individual is going to be a lot better positioned in the home buyer. Think back to 2020. How hard was it for the average person to get a home because inventory was so low? And we saw these investors, realtors told us
you
these
couldn't do a
stories.
government loan. You couldn't do FHA or VA, or nobody would accept it. They would only do conventional 20% down with, above asking in a lot of cases too. So that was a really, really tight market. So that would definitely help those situations.
And they were competing with institutional investors. I saw the letters coming in. Right?
So overall, what we're seeing from the administration, the ideas are really, this is some pretty positive stuff for housing.
They're healthier ideas. They're not 50-year mortgages.
You don't like the 50-year mortgage?
I don't care for it.
That was such a flop. That was the biggest flop I've ever seen. Nobody was interested in a 50-year mortgage.
Not a single person.
Well, it didn't save money. That was the biggest part.
Didn't do jack for it.
If you bought a $400,000 house, you saved $150 on your payment, and then you paid another $300,000 in interest.
So we can't stop thinking about it. All right, we'll wrap this up, and we'll see y'all next week.
Okay.